Toyota is often held up as the gold standard for reliability in the automotive world. When someone says they are buying a Toyota, there is usually no follow-up question like, "Do you think it will last?" The assumption is that it will. Many people associate the brand with trouble, free ownership, cars that run for hundreds of thousands of miles, and engines that just refuse to die. However, even Toyota is not immune to mistakes. There have been times when certain engines rolled off the production line with flaws that would tarnish their reputation. Some were plagued with expensive issues early in their lives, while others simply failed to deliver on performance or efficiency promises. At the same time, Toyota has also produced some of the finest internal combustion engines in history, power plants that became icons among enthusiasts, mechanics, and loyal customers. These engines have a proven record of lasting decades with minimal trouble. So today we will cover 3 of the worst Toyota engines ever made and 4 of the best. We will not just name them, we will dig into their history, the real problems or strengths they had, and why they stand out even today. The 3 worst Toyota engines. 1. 3VZE 3.0. 1980s and early 1990s were an exciting time for Toyota's trucks and SUVs. The small but mighty 22R E4 cylinder had earned a reputation for being nearly indestructible, but the market was changing. Competitors like Nissan and Ford were offering bigger V6 engines in their mid-sized trucks. Toyota needed something to match that, and so the 3VZE was introduced in 1988. On paper, it looked like a winner. At 3.0 liters, this V6 promised more torque for towing and better highway performance than the 4 cylinders. However, it soon became infamous for one glaring problem: its head gasket design. The head gaskets on these engines were prone to premature failure, sometimes before 70,000 miles. When a head gasket fails, coolant leaks into places it should never be, often causing overheating, warped cylinder heads, and in extreme cases, total engine destruction. Toyota eventually admitted the flaw and issued a recall to replace the gaskets with improved versions. But here is the catch: if the damage had already been done before the recall, the new gasket could not undo it. That meant some owners were stuck with engines that would never truly recover. Beyond that, the 3VZE simply did not deliver on performance. Many owners described it as underpowered for its size, struggling to pull loads and feeling sluggish on the highway. And because it was a compact V6, stuffed into tight engine bays, repairs were often labor-intensive and costly. In short, it was heavier, thirstier, and less reliable than the 4-cylinder it was meant to replace. Not a great combination. 2. Early 1ZZF 1.8L inline 4. The 1ZF was introduced in 1998 as part of Toyota's move toward lighter, more efficient aluminum engines. It appeared in a wide range of vehicles, including the Corolla Celica GT, and even the Pontiac Vibe through Toyota's partnership with General Motors. It featured modern touches for the time: an all-aluminum block timing chain instead of a belt, and variable valve timing. Unfortunately, early versions of this engine had a serious oil consumption problem. The piston rings and oil return holes in the pistons were poorly designed, allowing oil to seep into the combustion chamber and burn off. Owners would find themselves adding a quart of oil every 800 to 1,000 miles. This was not just an inconvenience. If an owner did not check the oil level regularly, the engine could run low on oil and suffer major internal damage. Many of these engines were ruined before reaching 120,000 miles, simply because owners were unaware of how quickly they were losing oil. Toyota eventually redesigned the pistons and rings around 2003, and later engines were much better. But the damage to the reputation had been done. A Corolla should have been the definition of stress-free driving. Instead, some owners spent more time checking dipsticks than enjoying the car. 3. 5VZFE 3.4L V6. Certain years, the 5VZFE was meant to correct the mistakes of the 3VZE. It had more power, better breathing, and a reputation for being tough in off-road use. It was found in the Tacoma, 4Runner, and T100 during the late 1990s and early 2000s. For the most part, it delivered on Toyota's promise of a strong truck engine. But certain production years were affected by, you guessed it, head gasket failures again. While far less common than with the 3VZE, these failures still caused headaches for owners. Overheating in a truck engine can quickly lead to warped heads and expensive repairs, and some unlucky buyers faced those bills before the odometer hit 6 figures. When the 5VZFE was healthy, it could run for 300,000 miles or more. But because of those problematic years, it cannot be called one of Toyota's best. The inconsistency means that buying one today requires research to ensure you are not getting a lemon. The 4 best Toyota engines. 1. 2JZ GE 3.0L inline-6 twin-turbo. If there were a Hall of Fame for engines, the 2JZ GTE would have its own wing. Introduced in the early 1990s, it powered the Toyota Supra MK4 and certain luxury sedans in Japan. What makes it so special? First, the block is cast iron, which makes it incredibly strong. Second, the internals, including the crankshaft, rods, and piston, were built to handle much more power than Toyota actually asked from the engine. That means tuners can safely push it to 600, 800, even over 1,000 horsepower without upgrading the bottom end. Even in stock form, it delivered smooth, effortless power thanks to its sequential twin-turbo setup. And it was not just a race engine. It was refined enough for daily driving, quiet at idle, and durable enough to go 2 to 50,000 miles without breaking a sweat. It is so revered that even today, decades later, car builders will pay huge sums for a clean 2JZ GTE, sometimes more than the cost of the car it came from. 2.1 4.0L V8. When Toyota launched the Lexus brand in 1989, it knew it needed an engine that could compete with the best from Mercedes, Benz, and BMW. The result was the 1.0 FE, a 4.0-liter V8 that blended smoothness, power, and bulletproof construction. It had an aluminum block and heads to keep weight down, but inside it was overbuilt. 6-bolt main bearings, a forged steel crankshaft, and precision-balanced internals. Engineers tested it relentlessly, including running it at high RPM for days at a time without failure. The result was an engine that could easily last 300,000 to 500,000 miles with regular maintenance. Many examples are still on the road today, running as smoothly as they did decades ago. And because it was so smooth and quiet, it became a favorite for luxury sedans, but also a popular swap for sports cars and off-road builds. 3. 22RE 2.4L Inline 4. The 22RE is the definition of simplicity done right. Found in Toyota pickups and 4Runners from the 1980s into the early 1990s, it was a low-revving, torque-friendly workhorse. The block was cast iron, the head was aluminum, and the fuel injection system was basic but reliable. What it lacked in horsepower, it made up for in sheer durability. It was not uncommon for these engines to rack up 400,000 miles without ever being opened up. Farmers, contractors, and off-road enthusiasts loved it because it could take abuse, run on low-quality fuel, and be fixed with basic tools. Even today, the 22RE has a cult following. Rebuild kits are cheap and parts are everywhere. For a vehicle that will see tough conditions, it is one of the most trusted engines Toyota has ever made. 4. 2GR-FE Toyota V6. The 2GR-FE is proof that Toyota can still build modern engines at last. Introduced in the mid-2000s, it powers everything from the Camry and Avalon to the Highlander, Lexus RX, and even the Lotus Evora sports car. It is an all-aluminum engine with timing chains instead of belts, variable valve timing on both camshafts, and a design that balances power and efficiency. In daily driving, it is smooth and quiet, but it also delivers strong acceleration when you push it. Perhaps most impressively, it does all this while still being incredibly reliable. Many owners report 250,000 to 350,000 miles with only basic maintenance. It has none of the oil, burning, or head gasket issues that plagued some older Toyota engines. Why the best succeeded and the worst failed? When you look at these engines side by side, patterns emerge. The best Toyota engines were designed with durability in mind from the start. They were either overbuilt for their intended purpose or kept simple enough to avoid complicated failure points. The worst engines often came from attempts to innovate quickly, switching materials, adding new technology, or trying to meet market demands without fully testing long-term durability. In the case of the 3VZE and early 1ZZ FE, a single weak point overshadowed the entire engine's reputation. Buying advice: if you are shopping for a used Toyota, the engine code under the hood matters more than you might think. A well-maintained Toyota with one of the best engines can last decades, but even a clean body and low miles cannot save you from the headaches of one of the problematic engines. Avoid early 1Z FE engines unless you have proof that updated pistons and rings were installed. Be cautious with 3VZE trucks unless the head gasket has been replaced with the updated design. With the 5VZ FE, research the production year to avoid the head gasket issue. On the other hand, if you find a vehicle with a 1ZF 2JZ GTE 22RE or 2GR-FE, you are likely looking at a machine that can serve you faithfully for hundreds of thousands of miles.